We get people in dark rooms, sitting around, being very angsty, talking about their emotions about the end of the world. I do not care about that because you're giving me too much of it. Hey everybody, my name is Nick. I'm a director and editor, and today I want to talk about the Netflix series, The Three-Body Problem. So The Three-Body Problem is a Netflix series that is taken from a book series by Liu Cixin called Remembrance of Earth's Past. I read this book series back in 2015, and it's been my favorite book series since then. If anyone asks for a book recommendation, that's always the first thing that I'll say. I'll say, you gotta read Three-Body Problem. I absolutely love these books, so when I found out that Netflix was doing an adaptation of them, I was not excited. I was actually very worried because I didn't believe that they would be able to do them justice. So before I get into my review of what I thought, I have to caveat, I'm going to complain. I have a bias. I love the books, and I do recognize that nothing probably would have been able to satisfy me in regard to this series because I'm obsessed with these books. I spent a lot of time thinking about them. For me, they're all about human nature, what it means to exist in the universe, why humans care so much about advancing philosophies on how to live your life. There's a lot that I have thought about with regards to it, and I just didn't believe, and I don't believe that anybody could live up to what I had created. And I think that is the case with a lot of books that become movies, right? If you all want, I can do a full book breakdown. Let me know in the comments if you would be interested to hear my breakdown of each book in the series as regards to the books, and just talk about what I think about the books, because I love them and I would love to do that. So I hope you would want to see that. Let me know in the comments. I know that my perspective on the books is coloring my reading of the show, so just keep that in mind as you listen to this review. If there's a piece of media that you love, and then someone remakes that and does something new, and that is even more popular than the original piece of media that you love, it becomes a little frustrating because when people think about it and when they reference it, they're referencing not the thing that you love, they're referencing this new thing that maybe you don't think lives up to what you love. So, or at least that's like the imagined scenario in my brain. I don't know if that's happening. This series, if you like it, if you think it's good, that doesn't mean that you should think like, oh, because the book was better, I can't like this. That's silly. Just kind of understand where my frustrations are coming from, and I think you probably can. So let's recap. What is this story about? Story starts during the Cultural Revolution, and we see Ye Wenjie, who is an astrophysicist. So in the Cultural Revolution, it was this time in China where the Red Guard, these young students, were given a lot of power to rearrange society in a new revolutionary way, and anything connected to the past and past systems of power, art, science, authority in any way, governmental figures, they were all deemed counter-revolutionary, and they needed to be purged to make way for new thought, right? And Mao did this specifically to retain power, clear out anybody who might question his authority. As a result, though, this was a very bloody time and a very anti-science, anti-progress time. Science, medicine, expertise in all way were all vilified and were taken backwards. The writer, Liu Cixin, is a scientist, so I can believe that this is something that he's very passionate about, and you can see in the way that he writes about this horrible time in China's history. Ye Wenjie's father is beaten to death in front of her by a Red Guard because he won't denounce his scientific achievements, and this radicalizes Ye to hate humanity. So just a little note is like that the book does a really good job of being very plot heavy and having a lot of these kind of exciting things happen, but doing it in a way where everything that happens can be understood towards kind of themes and metaphors, towards broader ideas about human nature and issues. And this is a big one to put a pin in if you read this series. This is how the whole series opens. So think about what this means for what this book series is trying to say about humanity and the way that we are. Ye Wenjie is later forced to work in a secret observatory in China where they're searching for life on other planets. She's kind of lowly now because it's in this time where she's been deemed kind of counter-revolutionary because she's connected to her father. So she's being forced, she's basically stuck in here, but they need her because she's smart, right? And they want to use her expertise, basically like astrophysicist slave labor. So she's working in this observatory, and their goal is to find life on other planets. A pacifist from another world contacts her and tells her, you guys do not contact us. We will invade you and attack you and take over your planet. Like, we're bad people. Please do not contact us back. Stop trying to contact other life forms. And Ye Wenjie, because she has so much hate in her heart for what happened to her, because she hates humanity and thinks that they cannot be saved, she ends up sending out a message to this other planetary race and essentially asks them to invade Earth and take it over. All this stuff that is happening in the show in China is my favorite part of what they did in the show. They did a really good job of staying true to the source material. They did a great job of bringing it to life. I think the sets and the setting and the acting in this is all great. Ye Wenjie, the young Ye Wenjie, is the best actor in this series, hands down. She is fantastic. Her pain, her rage, her confliction about betraying the human race, but the feelings that it betrayed her, is very obvious, and she does a great job of showing us these emotions. And it's just a great characterization of a person who is radicalized, and it allows you to understand how somebody could become radicalized. It's great. It's fantastic. The rest of the season, the rest of the stuff in the show is years later, modern day. Aliens have started to make contact with Earth secretly by allowing visions to happen in people with their technology. They're preparing for the invasion. The rest of the show is kind of Earth slowly figuring out what's happening, what's going on. This alien invasion is imminent. So that's the kind of fast rundown of the show. And there are a few things that the show has done differently. Something you realize as the series goes on is that season 1 is actually not just the first book. It's kind of all the content that happens in the 3 books in this time period called the Crisis Era, which is the time when humans found out that aliens were invading. So basically season 1 seems to be most of, not all of, but most of the content from the Crisis Era, which is the entire first book, some of the content from book 2, and then also some stuff from book 3. And so they kind of put it all together to show you Earth's preparation for the invasion that's coming. They also changed a lot of the characters in small ways. The scientist that makes up the most important character in book 1, Wang Miao, he's the scientist that develops this important nanofiber. He becomes a woman named Salazar, who is a nanofiber scientist. Salazar has all these other scientist friends. So there's a guy named Saul, who in the book is this character named Luo Ji. There's Jin, who in the book is Cheng Xin. Then they have this other dying friend named Will, who is Yun Tianming. And the thing that they did that they changed was that they made all these characters like friends that know each other. Whereas in the books, these are just scientists that are part of this broader effort to save Earth. And to me, that was a little bit frustrating because this already is a connective tissue for these characters. Characters working together in their specific scientific fields to save the planet. That is all you need to justify showing different characters. They don't need to be best buddies. They don't need to be friends. I mean, that is a big, big problem that I have with this change that they made. It's very trite and very silly. Because my big, big, big problem with it is that they made everybody these hot friends that were like, oh, we're all gonna crack jokes and go to the pub and drink together and hang out. Why did you do that? They don't have to be models, they're scientists. They should be scientists. Do you think that audiences are so dumb that we can only watch a show if it has like this TV trope of hot friends hanging out? This emotional rom-com vibe is like so much of what this show becomes, and that's not what the book series is. The book series is this scientific, very heady, it's like what we call like hard sci-fi, right? And it's all about the ways in which we are setting up systems to save humanity. And it focuses so much on all the plans and the ideas and the different things that they're going to do. And then very sparingly in the book series, humanity is inserted in light doses. We get characters that shine out in light doses. And whenever you see these characters dealing with their emotions, it stands out in the series as being very real. Because we're stuck in this world of planning. How are we going to save the planet? How are we going to save the planet? And then every once in a while when we see a character behaving in this very human way, it comes together to be like, oh yeah, we're still human. This has got to be really tough. Right? The world isn't this analytical thing. The world is made up of emotions. Showing us that in small doses, as is done in the book, really makes it significant and matter. But in the show, that's all we get. We get people in dark rooms, sitting around, being very angsty, talking about their emotions about the end of the world. I do not care about that because you're giving me too much of it. I don't need to hear it. It's whiny. Yeah. End of the world is hard. Boo freaking who. It's just like, we're not that dumb. We don't always need to think about emotion. We can think about saving the world. We can think about this science stuff. That's what made the book series unique and fun and interesting. It's like, remind us of our humanity in small doses. Don't make everything about that, because then you're taking our human emotions and you're making them trite rather than reminding us of why they matter. And this is something that I would get into if I were to do a series on every book, which I really want to do. So please let me know that you want that in the comments. Otherwise I won't do it. It's all up to you. So while we're on characters, let's talk about Dashi. So Dashi was my favorite character from the book series. He's a lot of people's favorite character from the book series. He's this crass Chinese cop. He's a very specific character. And if you've ever met a Chinese or Taiwanese uncle, you exactly know this guy. That's the type of person that we're talking about. And there's a certain humor to this type of person. There's a certain way of being that is just like very fun and funny and interesting. And they tried to do that, but they just didn't get it right because they sanitized him too much. Benedict Wong, I think, did a good job. He was funny sometimes, but he wasn't as much fun as Dashi should be because he didn't have the correct cultural vibe to him. I know that sounds weird and it's hard to explain, but I just wish I could have taken Benedict Wong to play Mahjong with Sonia and her uncles, and I'll be like, these are the people. This is who you are like. And I think if you have a Chinese uncle or you have a Taiwanese uncle, I think you know what I'm talking about. So this kind of goes a little bit back to why changing the characters, why changing the setting rubbed me the wrong way a little bit, because part of what makes this series so unique is it was written by a Chinese man who has different cultural references on life, references on people, references on characters, settings, ideas. And that undefinable cultural sauce gets removed if you make everything generic and put it into a different setting. It makes everything feel bland. And the real proof that this is true is that when the show is in China and it has these Chinese scenes, it's much better. And so I think if that authenticity and the characters and the way that they were was kept as Liu Cixin wrote it, it would just make it that much more interesting. And people appreciate that. They want to see shows from different cultures, from different perspectives, from different places, right? That's what this whole point of this channel is. I mean, I do commend the show because they did try to keep some of that in. The funeral stuff that they put in, the Buddhist funeral was exactly how a Buddhist funeral goes, and I appreciate them getting those little details right. But they just missed a little bit on a lot of other places. One example is they tried to change the name of the aliens in the book back to the original Chinese. And I think their heart was in the right place with that, but they missed something there. So the name of the aliens in the book, as it was translated, is Trisolaran, because they have 3 suns, trisolar, right? The name in Chinese in the book is Santiren, so 3-body people is the direct translation. It's very similar to Trisolaran because it's 3 celestial bodies, aliens. So it's a very literal way of doing it. Ken Liu, who translated these books, is a fantastic translator. He was able to translate this very scientific book into another language, and he did a great job of keeping it readable and keeping it fantastic. I mean, I think a big reason that this book is so successful is because of Ken Liu's translation. He changed Santiren to Trisolaran for a very specific reason. Now, my thought on what that reason is that if you were to keep the name Santiren in the English translated version, an English reader of it who didn't know Chinese would probably believe that this is just a random name. This is just like an alien name because they don't know, right? So he wanted to keep the original meaning of what this name came from, which is that humanity decided to give this very literal name to these new aliens. They called them Trisolarans. They were very descriptive. These are the aliens from the planet with the 3 suns. They are the Santiren, right? But when you change that in the American show and you don't explain why the name is Santiren to the audience, they lose that and they just think, okay, this is just a name. So it's important to know that Santiren has meaning behind it, and it has a very specific meaning related to these aliens. So what did I like about this series? I complained a lot, I've been being very nitpicky, but there are things that I liked about it. I thought that, like I said, young Ye Wenjie was a fantastic actress, great character. The way that I thought the young Ye Wenjie was fantastic in the show. Great acting, great characterization. I loved the way that they did all the China scenes. And the other thing that I liked that I didn't mention yet was the effects. I thought the effects were done very well. I really thought it was interesting. I loved the way they did the Sophons. They had this kind of 1999 computer generated graphic feel to it, and it was elevated though. So it didn't feel like it was just bad graphics. It felt like it was very intentional and cool looking. And it was kind of awesome. I really thought it was a bold choice to make the graphics look in this way. And even the stuff in the gameplay, I thought that the way that it was done was stylized enough to make it feel like it fit into a game. It kind of felt like it was like one of these old PC puzzle games that I used to play, which connects to like the way the game is. And it was like Myst or something. It was cool. And I thought that was a bold choice, and it kind of contrasted a little bit of the bland kind of Netflix standard operating procedure lighting that was in the rest of the show that I didn't like that much. I just think we can make bolder choices. We can do better. We can make things stand out a little more, which is what they did with the graphics, which is why I thought that was so cool that they did it. And I really appreciated it because it was a bold choice and it stood out. And when people do stuff like that, it's like, oh, cool, this is different, this is unique, this is interesting. So despite all my nitpicking and the things that I've been complaining about, I am still really looking forward to next season. You know, something I didn't really get into is I thought that the wall facer stuff was set up pretty well. The character of Saul, you know, he starts to be a little bit more interesting as the series goes on. And so I'm excited to see what they do with book 2, because book 2 is the best book. So if they can get book 2 right, I will forgive them for everything that I'm complaining about now. Like if you can nail book 2 and give us some cool space battles, look forward to that, then you know what? You did it. You did a good job. So I believe in you. If you need a consultant, I'm available for hire, because that happens, that will happen. Yeah, just let me know in the comments what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think I'm being annoying? Try not to be too mean though, because I'm a nice guy. Let's be nice in the comments. I'm nice to you, you're nice to me, everybody's nice on the internet. Let's try that for a change.